What if narcissists have empathy? Have you ever thought about that? Because a lot of times you see social media, different stuff out there that narcissists do not have empathy, or even more popular, narcissists are incapable of empathy, or narcissists, there's no possible chance that they have empathy because they don't have feelings, because they don't have emotions, because they don't have all this other stuff that's built into the human mind, heart, and brain, and as a result, they're incapable. Maybe they're just labeled as demons and like they can't do anything and like they're awful and all this type of stuff, but they don't have any empathy at all. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe you've been in the relationship where you notice your narcissist didn't have any empathy. They didn't seem to connect. They didn't seem to engage. They didn't seem to acknowledge another person. Or on the flip side, you could have been someone, maybe a covert or a vulnerable narcissist that did show empathy. Did they actually have it? Was it actually there? Are they incapable of it, or were they just mirroring you, or were they just throwing it out there? Want to be able to talk through some of these questions and some of the ideas and the concept about narcissists and empathy that doesn't get talked about or doesn't get brought up that much. So let's dive in here in just a second. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this platform to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. If you're listening today on Apple Music or on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, anything like that, thanks so much. Just rate or review what you're listening to. Share it. Send it to a couple people, because we all need ideas to be able to help other people see what is actually going on. The awareness needs to get out there more about what narcissism actually is, because people don't see it. People don't understand. Maybe you know someone today who's struggling with empathy. Maybe you know someone today who's in a relationship where the relationship doesn't seem very empathetic. Shoot them this info. Okay. If you don't follow me on some of the platforms, look up Raw Motivations. We're on everything: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Check out Raw Motivations. Follow, subscribe, like, join the community there, because we'd love to be able to help encourage you in your healing and your growth journey. There's a lot of people that want to help you, especially inside the NARC app. Download the NARC app, NARC, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community, NARC. You can look it up in Apple Store, Google Play. Would love to be able to have you join us there. There's thousands of people that have logged onto the app and that are starting to find that healing, that growth and change by tracking their no contact, by recording their truth, by engaging with people on the app, developing that sense of community, asking advice, giving like their wins and successes, tracking all those different things so that they can work on their healing, growth, and change. We also have weekly lives that happen inside the app for security reasons, so that you can come on screen and talk about situations that you're going through that you need help. It's not broadcasted to the rest of the general public. We also have monthly coaching where you can engage in Zoom calls, see survivors face to face, work with coaches from all around the globe that are helping you grow, change, heal, and develop into be the new version of you. I'd love to have you on there. We'd love to have you check that out. This is empathy. Like, do narcissists have empathy? Well, if you read the DSM-5, how it reads, let's look at it here. How it reads is a narcissist lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. So there's an aspect here that narcissists don't have empathy. And we can go down that whole path of like narcissists are incapable of empathy. They don't have empathy. It's not innate. There's different studies about like the gray matter in the brain. A lot of times that goes back to the early childhood development, 6 to 18 months with the primary caregiver, like all that different types of stuff. And you can come at it and say, hey, narcissists don't have empathy. I do think that they're a part of that is true. But I don't think that all of that is true. When you think about narcissists not having empathy, you get to the place of saying, hey, narcissists don't care. And that would be a true statement, because the majority of narcissists don't care at all. If more people could hear that and understand that, if that's the only thing you took away from this video today, that narcissists don't care, that might help save you from a toxic relationship. Because as you start to see this person's a narcissist, you need to understand they don't care about you. They don't care about the kids. They probably don't care about the animals. They don't care about anything except for maybe their money or their time or whatever is going to help support their mask. The thing that they're putting up and projecting to everyone else. So you have narcissists that don't have empathy, okay? But then you have narcissists that I think engage with empathy but are unwilling, okay? That's even how the DSM-5 reads. It says unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. So for a narcissist, they want to be able to hold that back. They want to be able to pull back. I think there's a little bit here that ties in the idea of object constancy. Okay, so I wanted to touch base on this. I've read with this before, and we've kind of talked about this. This is The Narcissist in Your Life by Julie Hall. I know that's really quick, but we're not reading the whole thing. Narcissists who lack whole object relations and object constancy means that they constantly facilitate between idealizing and devaluing themselves and others, between emotional connection and disconnection. When narcissists are disappointed or angry with their partner, for example, their feelings about that partner can swing to contempt and rage. When they are physically apart from him or her, they experience out of sight, out of mind, and struggle to maintain their emotional connectedness. This is something that I connect with. I connect with a lot in this idea of the emotional connectedness. If I'm away from a person, if I'm disconnected, if maybe there's even been a fight or anything like that, that emotional connection is like gone. And so there's an aspect there that the narcissist can see and understand that there's an emotional thing there. There's empathy there, but they're pulling it back. Or it's out of sight, out of mind. It's no longer something I engage with. They experience the out of sight, out of mind. This consistent, sustained trust and intimacy is extremely difficult. Personality disorder Eleanor Greenbook describes the problem this way. Most of the abuse of romantic partners occurs because the narcissistic abuser lacks object constancy and literally forgets that they care about their partner, and all the positive history and good moments are now totally out of awareness. When someone lacks this ability, it increases the likelihood that they will cheat on their partner. Okay? So that's the idea that I'm trying to tie in a little bit there when it comes with emotions, when it comes with empathy, when it comes to connecting with other people. I do think there's an aspect that narcissists have empathy, but they're unwilling to acknowledge, they're unwilling to give. Out of sight, out of mind, no longer exists, so it doesn't really matter. I don't have to worry about it. And they continue moving right on. So a lot of times you'll see them disconnect from a subject and come back a couple minutes later and be like, okay, what's for supper? And you're like, you just yelled at me. You just raged at me. I was just crying. But they just disconnected. Out of sight, out of mind, moving on. All right, so with the DSM-5, lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. So I want you to think through this thought. I think there's narcissists out there that have empathy, that have some level of empathy, but refuse to give it. Okay? You might have seen sometime in your relationship where you experienced moments of where it felt like empathy, or moments in the love bombing stage, or even sometimes back and forth in the devaluing stage or the discard stage, or the push-pull of everything that just confuses your mind. But I think there's an aspect there that narcissists have some level of empathy at times, but they're unwilling or they're refusing to give it. So let me give you this illustration. Let's say I do something wrong and my wife is crying and she's frustrated and she's crying, and I know because of my guilt and shame that's already kicked off in my head that she's crying because of me. She's crying because of my actions, the things that I have done that have hurt her. Well, typically on the cycle, I'm going to blame and rage. But for this illustration, we're just sitting in this moment, okay? She's there crying. I'm over here. In that moment, I know, hey, the thing that's going to help her in this moment is to walk up to her, give her a hug, and apologize or say that I'm sorry. Okay, with that is the idea of putting myself in that person's shoes and giving her empathy. But the problem with this, the problem with the aspect of narcissist and the aspect of empathy is when I look at this person and they are crying because of something that I've done, what triggers in my mind is if I give empathy, then I am validating their emotions. I'm validating what they're feeling. If I validate what they're feeling, then I'm agreeing that what they're feeling is actually right and valid. If I'm validating what they're feeling, I'm agreeing with what they're going through is actually valid, which ultimately means if my wife is crying because of me, if my wife is crying because of something I did wrong, and I validate that, I'm actually saying, hey, I agree that what you're experiencing is from me. And a narcissist doesn't want to hold on to that or doesn't want to engage with that because of that idea. Agreeing or admitting with another people's feelings means that I'm agreeing and admitting that they're right and that I'm wrong. For a narcissist, I don't want to do that. Because remember, that doesn't support my ego, doesn't support my entitlement, doesn't support my mask. Because that mask is built that I'm number one, I'm the king, I'm the God of the universe, and everyone's supposed to serve, bow down, and give that to me. So in those moments when I know, hey, I can engage with empathy, I can give her this. But if I do, what does that mean about me? There's an aspect as well as of cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is that thought process of understanding and knowing what that empathy needs to look like, but it's not an innate feeling. A lot of narcissists can use and manipulate cognitive empathy to be able to get a supply for love bombing purposes, to be able to twist it around to be the hero, to be the savior. A lot of times they can use the cognitive empathy. For me, a lot of what I use is cognitive empathy because it is easier to engage with than this innate desire of like, oh my gosh, I feel that. I don't connect as much with that, and it's not innate. I've given the example before, but like the idea of like when my daughter was trying to get into the guest bedroom and she was just trying to learn how to do the door handles and she couldn't get it and she got really frustrated and she like reared back and she just like hit her head into the door because she was mad. And then she started crying because she just hurt herself. My first thought was like, what did you expect? Like you just ran your head into the door. Okay? Not empathetic at all. Okay? But then I have to realize, okay, cognitive empathy has to kick in and be like, okay, let's get down on her level. Let's talk through what's actually going on. Let's deal with the feelings. Let's work on helping her process those. Because if I don't help her process those, if I don't work with that, then she's not going to learn how to be able to engage with those emotions in a healthy way so that she can open the door and not get mad when she's struggling and not get mad when she's failing at that. And that's where it's great because I have my wife to be able to watch and exemplify and learn from her of how to be able to engage with that empathy. There's more parents out there that need to engage with empathy, that need to engage with the idea of being respectful parents, of how they're going to interact with their kids to help them develop a safe place for them to grow, mature, and develop, and also help them develop that safe place so they can grow emotionally and emotionally mature. So do narcissists have empathy? Did your narcissist have empathy? Yes, maybe, no, I don't know. The end of the day is they either didn't have empathy and they didn't care, or they didn't care and they purposely held back the empathy, which is probably even worse. So when you think about that, if narcissists have empathy or not, the biggest thing with that empathy aspect is I don't want to give that because I don't want to admit that I'm wrong.